Beautiful. Thank you, choir. Two call experiences we find in the Gospel of Mark. Different individuals who are invited to get in on it. We find the first call experience in the first chapter of Mark, verses 16 through 18. As Jesus walked beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and his brother Andrew casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. "Come, follow me," Jesus said, "and I will make you fishers of men." At once they left their nets and followed him. And then we go over to chapter 10 and find quite a different story. Chapter 10, beginning with verse 17. As Jesus started on his way, a man ran up to him and fell on his knees before him. "Good teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" "Why do you call me good?" Jesus answered. "No one is good except God alone. You know the commandments. Do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not give false testimony, do not defraud, honor your father and mother." "Teacher," he declared, "all these I have kept since I was a boy." Jesus looked at him and loved him. "One thing you lack," he said. "Go sell everything you have and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come, follow me." At this, the man's face fell. He went away sad because he had great wealth. I found over the years that there are some words that everyone in a congregation just loves to hear. No matter how messed up you are, God still loves you. Everybody likes that one. Y'all are tired and exhausted. Well, God comes to bring you refreshment and relaxation. You can never go wrong with those words. But what about these words? You need to surrender. You are sinful, stubborn, and stiff-necked. You are self-centered and self-promoting. Your own desires are very often self-serving. Your ability to perceive your own sin is blinded by self-deception. You need to get on your knees, submit your heart, confess your sin, and surrender. Nobody likes to hear that. Surrender. Sounds like a hot August night under a revival tent from a loud, big-haired preacher. Surrender. But I want to invite you this morning to put the word surrender back into the vocabulary of your faith. Indeed, to see it as maybe the one most essential act if we truly are to be followers of Jesus Christ. Whatever else discipleship must involve, surely it involves that we set everything else aside and place and face our future right on Jesus Christ. The text this morning for the Gospel of Mark finds two different occasions, two different people who are given the same invitation: follow me. Ordinary people, we all know them. Two of them, they make their living off the sea. They earn their wages off the strength of their arms and their back. When they come home from work in the evening, you know what kind of work they do by the smell of their clothes. And then there's the professional, the young, successful guy. He's right out of GQ magazine. He's got a laptop and cell phone, pager always with him. All the trappings of a man who is on the fast track to success. And right between all of them, I would suggest maybe we find you and me. The story makes very clear that God calls any and all kinds of people to come and follow him. But just because they are ordinary doesn't mean that the invitation on their life is ordinary. Quite frankly, anything but. Here they are being invited to turn their lives upside down, to go to what they don't know and leave what they do know, to now give up control of their lives to someone else now being in control. And the radical response we see of both gives indication of just how life-changing this kind of invitation can be for any of us. A few weeks before my 10th birthday, during the last night of a revival service, while we were singing way too many verses of Just As I Am, I walked down the aisle of the Roslyn Hills Baptist Church in Roanoke, Virginia, put my hand in Stuart Kersey's, the pastor's hand, and said I wanted to give my life to Jesus Christ. I didn't know all what it meant, but adults came by and told me it really was the most important decision that I would ever make in my life. And I was just happy that God knew now that I was one of His. Craig Barnes, in a book of his entitled Sacred Thirst, he talks about going to a Christmas party while he was in graduate school. He noticed everybody exchanging gifts, but he was particularly aware of one person because of the unique way that he gave gifts to others. This man, when he would give a gift, he would hold the gift out in his hand, but when it came time to put it in the other person's hand, his elbows would lock just like that. And he would give that gift to different persons. And so when they received it, his arms would be just elbows locked, as it were. And Craig Barnes found that curiosity got the best of him. He went and asked the guy, and he said, well, it's not just politeness. He says, when I give a gift, and when somebody receives a gift from me, I want them to know that I'm not holding anything back from them, and I'm not hiding anything at all. There you have it, I think. When God invites us to follow Him, He invites us to present our life as a gift to Him, holding nothing back, hiding absolutely nothing from Him. See, that was good and fine when I was 9 years old. It was easy to walk down that aisle, and it just made me feel good that all those adults were coming up and telling me what a good guy I was. But along in my teenage years, about 16 years old, I realized God started wanting more of me than I had planned to give to Him. I'd given my life, but I'd not really given Him control. That was a whole nother thing. I increasingly felt that He wanted me to go into ministry. Nobody seemed less likely than me. Nobody seemed more improper a candidate. I could just give 10 dozen reasons before breakfast why this guy certainly must have gotten the wrong person. But the call of my life was something that I just couldn't quite get away from. So I struggled with it. I avoided it. I put it off. I went away for a whole summer to try to pray about it. And on a Friday morning in August of 1972, I could show you the square foot where I was standing. There's really just no other word to describe it. I surrendered. I was tired of fighting God's will. I said, fine, I'm yours. And that even wasn't as big a deal for me until I got my senior year in college. When I first went off to college, only 2 hours away, I was just as homesick as anybody ever could be. And that memory kind of stayed with me all through college. And then my senior year, I'm thinking, man, now I got to go to seminary. And I'm going to go to one that's 11 hours drive away. I'm going to be in a whole nother state outside of Virginia. God help me. And the very idea of that and the seriousness of it, except for a college chaplain, I probably would never have done it. To really see all the red lights blinking, all the reasons that, man, this is more than I bargained for. I just want to be a Christian. I just want to go to church. I want Jesus to like me. But to give myself over that much, again, the word surrender, without being dramatic, just seemed to be the only word that I could describe it. May I remind you, every one of you has a calling. Every one of you. And I know some who go gladly into their calling, just like Peter immediately lower their nets and go for it. And I know others who are more like me, kicking and screaming every step of the way. But I also have known so many through the years who have just not done it at all, who have said no. Look again in our text. Simon Peter and Andrew, the text says they dropped their nets immediately and followed him. If I spent my entire day around smelly fish, I would have left immediately as well. But evidently for them, there was just no struggle when it comes to God's call. And that is how it is for some people. But then we just go a few more chapters. And this rich young man, he just couldn't bring himself to divest himself of all his power and all his success and all that he seemed to be acquiring in his life. And he missed the best moment of his life. I get both of these. But for me, at the end of the day, the risk of not following Jesus is never as great as the risk of following him is always less than not following. But there is surrender somewhere along the way. And I'm just like you, as many days as not, I still want to be in control. I still want to call the shots. I still think that nobody knows best what's best for me more than I do, not even God. And so I want to help him understand what he really needs to get when it comes to how my life would be better. And I have those prayers sometimes that just trying to give God a little of my wisdom. Help me out here, going to get you on the right. Jesus was not wrong when he promised the disciples any number of times that they would have life and they would have it more abundantly. Read the text. Does anybody really believe that Simon Peter and Andrew, for all that they gave up, that their lives ended up being less or smaller than that rich man who went away sad? I agree with Doug Steer, the wonderful Quaker writer. He says that Jesus always promised those who followed him three things: that they would be absurdly happy, entirely fearless, and always in trouble. Absurdly happy, entirely fearless, and always in trouble. We certainly see that with Simon Peter and Andrew. The best moment of their life came when they responded to Christ. And they were fearless. We read the stories after Jesus' death and resurrection. They went on and became martyrs of the faith. And so because of that, they were always in trouble. Always in trouble. It's not a bad path. It's not a bad path to take, because the young man, all we know about him is that he went away sad. Norman Vincent Peale, some of you long-timers know that name. Norman Vincent Peale was probably one of the best-known American preachers before Billy Graham came along. In his spiritual autobiography, The Positive Power of Jesus Christ, he writes about going to the Marble Collegiate Church in New York City. It was during the Depression. Morale was low. Attendance was stagnant. He was more and more kind of out of sorts as a pastor there, kind of just bemoaning all that was. And so he said he and his wife Ruth were on vacation, and they were sitting on a park bench. And his wife Ruth said to him, "Norman, you need to surrender your church, your problems, your entire self to Christ. Well, I know you've done this before, but you need to do it again, and perhaps even in greater depth. And as you do it, I promise you will receive a peace, a joy, a new energy, a quality of enthusiasm that will never run down." And then with all the wisdom of a good wife, she said, "And Norman, you're going to sit on this bench until you do it." And so he prayed. He prayed, "I hereby with all my heart surrender my soul, my life, my all to you. Use me as you will." He said in the moments that followed, he found a peace that he had not ever known before, surging through his soul. He wrote, "I can tell you with complete sincerity that from that moment on, my life has never been the same again. The dear Lord has been my friend all the way. Jesus Christ has the power to change lives." Simon Peter and Andrew would amen that, but only because they did follow when others did not. How then do you do it? How do you get in on it? How do you let your life be just a little more than it has been? How do you discover the difference that comes in saying yes to Christ instead of yes always to yourself? Thomas Kelly, in his classic book, A Testament of Devotion, he said there are 3 things to do. The first thing he says to do, and I absolutely love this line, just want you to marinate in this, if you will. He said, first, you glimpse the wonder of such a life. If you could just glimpse the wonder of your life, just as ordinary as fishermen or fast-track young businessmen or wherever you are, you could glimpse the wonder that you just gave your life a little bit more like Christ, what it would look like. Then he says, glimpse what you can become in Christ. If you just can't even get a picture of that, he said, just look at some of the great people of faith that you know, the great women and men of faith, and look at the power and the glory that you see just filling their lives, and think about what that could mean for you. Then he says, second of all, you begin where you are. I like that, because that's the only place we can begin. Not where we ought to be, where we should be, where we know God wants us to be. You begin where you are. You start obeying God right now, right here, right in this place even. And in whatever small way you are capable of following Him, then just let that be where you start and give it that much. You ask God to open your life, to guide your thoughts, to give you a sense of God's dream for your life. And then he says, when you falter, and you will always fail, God's disciples are full of failure stories. He said, don't beat up yourself. Don't beat yourself up. We all fail. Just start afresh and start anew. And finally, he says, ultimately, just relax and let God be in control. Let God be the unseen partner that's kind of walking with you and carrying you and letting you be who you were designed and born to be. The story of Simon, Peter, and Andrew, the story of the rich young man. Yes, there's danger in giving up control. You can lose control of the life you're in charge of, and now Christ to be in charge of it. But there's a danger in saying no to it as well. Barbara Brown Taylor, wonderful writer, she says, the danger in saying no to God's call on your life long enough is that eventually you will stop hearing it. You can say no to life. You can say no to miracles. But if you do, Barbara Brown Taylor says, rest assured, no angels will ever trouble you again. And so he comes by the sea as one unknown. He comes to the places where we work. He intersects with the personalities that we are. And he says, follow me. And we do, and life becomes different, or we don't, and we keep being in charge to see how well that works. But follow him and know a life that is absurdly happy, abundantly fearless, and always dangerous. That's where I want to be. Our hymn of invitation this morning, there's that word again, I surrender all. Hymn number 499. Maybe there are some this morning who know that God has been trying to get a place in you, been tugging at you to make a profession of faith just to follow him. Or maybe unite with this church from another church family, or some renewed commitment of your life. From wherever you are and however you are, as you are, I'll be in the front to receive you. Let us stand and sing to the glory of God, hymn number 499. Let me first of all say a word of welcome to guests who are with us today. Today is a great day to be a guest. Once a quarter, we have what we call our guest luncheon. Down in the fellowship hall, it's a very brief, casual snack lunch. We have more than enough food. If you are a guest today, We really would love for you to go over to the fellowship hall and join the outreach team, and the ministers will be there for a very brief just lunch together. If you can't do that, we have a guest reception room over the side. Marcus Noonan on our outreach team is there. We'd love to meet with you and share any information, or we'll just get to know you better. Our highest celebration comes Owen Williams coming to make his profession of faith, to respond to Christ's invitation on his life, to follow him. He's the son of Greg and Elizabeth, and Doug and Janie's grandson, nurtured in this church. Rob James Ichthus has been very influential in that. And we're just so delighted because this guy is one of our best. And so delighted that he has responded to God's call. Look forward to your baptism, Owen. So all of you who share in joy for one who comes into the kingdom like this, let it be known a tangible expression, our left lifted hand, our sign of delight. They are happy, Owen. So I want to invite you to come up here, if you will, following the benediction, and let Owen know. How old are you, Owen? 11. I was 9. So I was a little ahead of you, but that's the main thing, that you've done it. And glad that you're 11 years old and giving your life to Christ. It's all out in front of you. Now, I'm going to ask you to sit for just a second, because we're going to do one other thing. Dr. Skinner, if you will come and join me. I've been here about 10 and a half years, and about a few months after I came, this wonderful lady, minister, came to our church. We start with her at every worship. We end with her every worship. So could not be more blessed with the ministry that we have, of all the ways she supports the music ministry of our church. She has performed literally in concert halls all over the country. If she had done nothing more than that, then she would be a person of unique and amazing talent. But her talents are not just talents, they are spiritual gifts. And she has offered them in service and ministry to the work of the kingdom through the life of this church. We have all been just amazed at her talent and her spiritual gift that she gives us. And so for 10 years, she has blessed the church. She's been a servant of this church and of God's kingdom. And just the way we have benefited and been blessed by you. So we want to say thank you. We love you. We appreciate you. We depend upon you for lifting us to higher places, as you do so very often. So thank you. Don't you want to say thank you to her? And there you go. All right. There you go. So if you remain standing, I'm going to ask you to, I hope you will come up and welcome Owen and give thanks to Janine, and then go out to a beautiful day. Our response for the benediction, we're going to share it together, if you have your program, to reading our theme verses from 1 Peter. So if you have that, if you will join with me. Be generous with the different things God gave you, passing them around so all get in on it. If words, let it be God's words. If help, let it be God's hearty help. That way, God's bright presence will be evident in everything through Jesus. And he'll get all the credit as the one mighty in everything. Encores to the end of time. Oh, yes. Okay.